My 38-year-old daughter, 21, is battling kidney failure. We've been estranged for 3 years, primarily because she projected her health issues and conflicts with her dad, 38, and stepmom, 31, onto me. I invested a significant amount of money, alongside my husband Ethan, 49, in therapy for her, but she remains resentful and challenging. Ethan and I have two teenage boys. Sacrifices were made in my career due to my first pregnancy, and my parents disowned me then. With Ethan's support, I pursued education in accounting and obtained a real estate license. Now, despite working 50-hour weeks, I'm thrilled to be earning six figures while Ethan's business allows him to work from home. My daughter, who had been mostly distant since turning 18, resurfaced recently, needing a kidney. When word got out, friends from my past mommy groups bombarded me with pressure to donate. Against Ethan's wishes, I sought medical advice and discovered I was a match. I attempted to involve my daughter's father, but her stepmom intervened, insisting his responsibility lay with their own family. My ex declared his duty was to his wife and children, refusing to be tested. Everyone else, including my daughter, now looked to me for a kidney. When I expressed concerns about surgery and work commitments, my daughter callously disregarded my fears, echoing the sentiments of my friends. Fueled by anger, I conveyed to the doctor a sense of coercion, expressing that I'd rather die than endure serving my ungrateful daughter. In response, the doctor rightfully deemed me an unsuitable donor, emphasizing the importance of never feeling trapped. I confided in Ethan, who prioritized my well-being and our family's needs. However, my friends reacted with indignation, attempting to publicly shame me for my decision. They demand I recant and feign a change of heart, but I stand by my truth. I'm considering signing something to prove I wasn't coerced, even if it means getting it notarized. Am I in the wrong here? The fact that her dad won't even get tested is insane. Imagine your parents arguing over who doesn't want to save your life. They're only reinforcing her decision to distance herself. I wonder which parent will foot the bill for the funeral since she won't be receiving a kidney. Or will they argue about that too? Does everyone else see that Opie blames her daughter for being disowned by her parents because Opie had a child at 17? I'm astounded by what I'm reading. It's just unreal to me. You're the one in the wrong here. It's laughable to think they'll pay for her funeral, especially since she already spent hundreds of her and her much older husband's money on her daughter's therapy. Come on. Who earns over $100,000 solo, with their husband likely making more, and then complains about spending less than $1,000 on therapy for their kid? Someone whose kid went low contact for good reasons. Anyway, who uses their children's medical bills, especially such a trivial amount, as an excuse to neglect or abuse them. That's just despicable. However, the only reason Opie is in the wrong is because she can't keep her mouth shut. You shouldn't have divulged the medical information to your circle. It was your decision, and you didn't need to disclose why there was no donor compatibility. That's nobody else's business. The doctors will inform everyone if you're not compatible if you're unwilling. It's a shame you told anyone that you were. Well, she had her kid when she was 17, so she's probably stuck in that emotional state where you feel the need to share everything publicly with everyone. I feel so sorry for this daughter. Both of her awful parents have written her off. Opie had no contact with her the moment she became legally an adult, and she struggled with her health for years. Of course, she's going to be bitter and disappointed. No one has ever supported her. No one owes anyone on her, but even ignoring that, Opie is insufferable. My wife and I were apart for 6 months by her request, and while it's true that both of us bear some responsibility, dwelling on that isn't productive. During our separation, I discovered she was seeing other people, which understandably upset me. When I confronted her, she pointed out that we hadn't explicitly agreed to exclusivity during this time. It was a fair point, albeit painful to hear. I pondered the situation and concluded that I couldn't undo what had happened, nor did I see a significant difference between one instance of infidelity and multiple occurrences. In response, I began dating someone new with whom I share a deep connection. Although we haven't committed to exclusivity, my wife now expresses a desire to reconcile, having worked on her personal issues through therapy. I'm open to this idea, especially considering our children and the positive changes I've witnessed in her. However, I'm also deeply invested in my current relationship and believe she deserves a place in my life. I've been transparent with my wife about my feelings, explaining that while I'm willing to rebuild our marriage, I'm not willing to end things with my girlfriend. She insists that she hasn't been intimate with anyone since our confrontation, providing evidence of her commitment to reconciliation. While I appreciate this gesture, I remain committed to my girlfriend, whom I genuinely love and enjoy spending time with. My wife is understandably conflicted, but I remind her that it was her decision to separate, and it's natural for emotions to evolve during such a period. Despite my desire for reconciliation, I refuse to give up my relationship with my girlfriend. Surprisingly, my girlfriend is supportive of my efforts to reconcile with my wife, demonstrating a level of maturity and understanding that I deeply appreciate. As I navigate this complex situation, I can't help but sympathize with others who find themselves in similar predicaments, especially those with children. It's a challenging situation, but ultimately, I believe honesty and communication are crucial. While some may view my actions as indecisive or selfish, I'm determined to pursue a path that prioritizes both my own happiness and the well-being of those I care about. Despite the conflicting advice and opinions I receive, I remain committed to finding a resolution that honors the complexity of my emotions while also respecting the needs and feelings of everyone involved. After all, life rarely adheres to neat and tidy solutions, and navigating love, relationships, and family requires a delicate balance of empathy, honesty, and compromise. As the appointed guardian of my sister's 5 children, spanning from a tween girl to a toddler boy, I found myself immersed in the whirlwind of preparations for an upcoming family wedding. With the event on the horizon, my focus shifted towards ensuring that the children were impeccably dressed for the occasion. While outfitting the boys was a relatively straightforward affair, each receiving a fresh pair of jeans and a smart shirt, the task of selecting attire for the girls proved to be more intricate and laden with unexpected complications. Amidst the aisles of the clothing store, the girls reveled in the opportunity to choose their attire. The youngest, with her wide eyes sparkling with delight, gravitated towards a whimsical unicorn-themed dress complete with delicate fairy wings that shimmered under the store lights. The middle girl, embodying the grace of a budding princess, insisted on a gown adorned with regal embellishments, her head held high as she adorned herself with a grand pink tiara. And then there was the eldest, exuding a quiet elegance as she carefully selected a modest white dress, accented with gentle splashes of pink and yellow flowers, a choice that spoke volumes of her understated sophistication. However, the joy of these sartorial selections soon gave way to an unexpected storm of disapproval when my nephew and his wife expressed their vehement objection to the white dress worn by my tween niece. Despite its innocent design and its unmistakable divergence from the attire typically associated with a bride, they regarded it as an affront to propriety. Their reaction was not confined to mere disapproval. It escalated into a deliberate act of exclusion, as they opted to withhold a Christmas present from her, a gesture that pierced the tender heart of a child who could not comprehend the rationale behind such cruelty. In the wake of this distressing turn of events, I found myself grappling with a myriad of emotions: bewilderment, frustration, and above all, a profound sense of injustice. When I confronted my nephew and his wife regarding their actions, their response was steeped in stubborn justification, citing an imagined breach of wedding etiquette as grounds for their harsh treatment of my niece. As the dust settled on this tumultuous episode, the ensuing discourse among family members was fraught with differing perspectives and impassioned debates. Some directed blame towards me for permitting the white dress, while others decried the cruelty of my nephew and his wife's actions. Yet amidst the cacophony of opinions, one truth remained resolute: the innocence of a child's desire to feel beautiful and cherished should never be eclipsed by the rigid confines of societal norms or the callous judgments of others. It's truly disheartening and baffling to witness such absurdity. What exactly was my sister-in-law worried about? That someone would mistake a child in a floral sundress for the bride? Her unreasonable stance on prohibiting white clothing is utterly nonsensical, especially when it comes to children. This rule is meant to prevent adults from stealing attention, not innocent kids who are simply dressing for a family celebration. Perhaps my sister-in-law needs to address her own insecurities before lashing out and punishing my daughter for such a trivial matter. It's disgraceful and immature behavior on her part. As for my wife, She made the difficult decision to leave her teaching job due to mental health reasons, and she hasn't shown any real inclination to return to the workforce since then. While we're not exactly struggling financially, I can't deny that I miss the extra income from when she was working. Over the past couple of years, she's been dedicating a significant amount of time babysitting her niece, at her sister's request, for long hours 3 days a week. While she does it out of a sense of obligation, it's simply unreasonable for her to bear such a heavy burden. When I finally addressed the issue with my sister-in-law and informed her that her daughter would need to go to daycare next year, I was met with resistance. She claimed it wasn't my place to dictate what my wife could or couldn't do. While I understand her perspective, I can't ignore the fact that she's been taking advantage of my wife's kindness and generosity. The core problem here is her exploitation of my wife's willingness to provide free childcare, and that is simply not acceptable. Despite my wife's reluctance to confront her sister about the issue of payment for babysitting, it's clear that the situation has taken its toll on her. She's expressed her burnout and the toll it's taken on her mental health. She's also opened up about how the combination of teaching and babysitting has extinguished her desire to have children of her own. It's a complex and emotionally charged situation, and while I may have overstepped in some regards, I firmly believe that it's imperative to address the exploitation my wife has been subjected to. The concern here is that her sister would struggle if she lost her family support. I intervened because I was tired of seeing her taken advantage of. I've attempted multiple times over the years to assert boundaries, but she's hesitant to do so out of love for her niece. However, it's evident that this situation is taking a toll on her mental health, mirroring the strain she experienced from teaching. I was the one who encouraged her to leave her teaching job because it was detrimental to her well-being. It became a monotonous cycle of work and sleep, with little time for anything else. Now, the same pattern is emerging with babysitting. My wife isn't solely responsible. I take over when I get home from work, and we share the responsibilities of dropping the child off and providing necessities like food and diapers. Additionally, my wife is actively involved in potty training her niece, essentially taking on the role of primary caregiver for 3 days a week. In this situation, blame seems to be misplaced on all sides. My wife's willingness to help her sister for free while neglecting our nuclear family is a source of frustration. However, redirecting that frustration towards her sister-in-law isn't entirely fair either. While she is undoubtedly taking advantage of the situation, the root issue lies in my wife's inability to set boundaries and prioritize her own well-being. Suggestions to reconsider my marriage based on my wife's behavior are unwarranted and insensitive. It's clear that my wife is struggling with her mental health, and instead of vilifying her, she needs understanding and support. It's essential to address the underlying issues and work towards a solution together, rather than resorting to blame and ultimatums. As for the financial aspect, the cost of daycare for 36 hours a week is significant. It's a valid point to consider whether my wife's efforts are being undervalued and whether alternative arrangements could alleviate the strain on our family. Ultimately, this is a complex and emotionally charged situation that requires careful consideration and open communication. It's essential to approach it with empathy and understanding, with the ultimate goal of finding a resolution that prioritizes the well-being of all involved.